Hello, good afternoon, welcome back to Premier League Dad. It's the Game Week 22 prediction show where we'll be taking a look ahead at a massive set of fixtures in the Premier League this weekend. Let's take a look. So first up is the early kickoff on Saturday afternoon, Newcastle against Bournemouth. What a game that is shaping up to be. I mean, this is arguably a meeting between the two most informed teams in the Premier League. You've got Newcastle, who are on this incredible winning run, 9 games unbeaten, and Bournemouth, who are 10 games unbeaten in all competitions, absolutely flying themselves in the European places. I really can't separate this one. Again, I think this is going to be a draw. I might even be going the old favourite, Desmond, 2-2. I think that might be what we might be looking at, you know. And the reason I say that is because Bournemouth have scored 2 or more goals in their last 6 away Premier League games. And Andoni Iraola is a manager that likes to think, you know, his attack is his best form of defence. So I fully expect he'll approach this game in exactly the same manner. You know, I watched Newcastle against Wolves in midweek, and although the performance was very good, you know, they won 3-0, they did give up chances to Wolves, and Wolves hit the bar a couple of times. So I think we're looking at another basketball type game where it's end-to-end. I think Bournemouth will go for it. I think Newcastle will go for it. It'll be a fantastic one to watch. The early kickoff in the Premier League usually is. And the bookies will be favouring Newcastle for this one, understandably, after their incredible winning run. But my dad always says, never back the early kickoff. So something tells me there might be a slight, maybe not an upset, because Bournemouth are playing very well as well. But I think Bournemouth are going to get something from the game. I'm going to go 2-2. High scoring, 2-2, Desmond. Next up is Brentford against Liverpool in the Saturday 3 o'clock games. I'm so nervous for this one. I really am. Liverpool cannot afford to keep starting games slowly. We did it against Fulham, against Newcastle before Christmas, and we dropped points. We've done it against United recently. We did it against Nottingham Forest again in midweek. You know, Brentford will need no encouragement from Liverpool to have a really good go at them. And Thomas Frank will have his players really up for this one. They've got some players that can hurt Liverpool. There's no doubt about that. And, you know, the G-Tech will be bouncing. They'll be up for this one. It has got banana skin written all over it. And I'm just a little bit concerned with how Liverpool are starting games. If the Liverpool that played in the first half against Nottingham Forest turns up, I suspect Brentford might beat us. Annoyingly, we've become that Jekyll and Hyde team, almost either side of half-time. Oh, it's a really tough one to call. I've got the last 2 big teams going away to Brentford wrong. I actually thought Arsenal would slip up, and they ended up winning, albeit Brentford maybe threw that one away. And I predicted that City would get the job done. They'd labour, but they'd get the job done. And in the end, you know, Brentford nick a point. So I've got the last 2 wrong for Brentford at home. So I'm almost tempted to predict a draw just because Liverpool might get the win then. But no. I'm going to show faith in my team for a change. I backed Liverpool to drop points away at Forest at the weekend. And I got that one right, sadly. I'm going to back my team. I'm going to back Liverpool to turn it round and get the win that they need to keep that momentum at the top of the league. I think Brentford will give us a scare though. They might even go in front. That wouldn't be incredibly surprising. I'm going to go 2-1. I think Brentford probably do take the lead and cause us some concerns, but I think Liverpool's quality tells in the end. So, yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool. Next up, Leicester against Fulham, and a game that Leicester really have to win. Next up, Leicester City against Fulham, and a game that Leicester really have to win. Absolutely have to win. I don't even think a draw is good enough in this one. If they've got ambitions of getting out of that relegation zone, they've got to start picking wins up at home. It's such an important time for Ruud van Nistelrooy, and I'm not sure he can afford a 7th defeat in a row. I just can't see past a Fulham win in this one. Ruud van Nistelrooy hasn't had enough of an impact on this Leicester side. You know, this is a really bad run that they're on, and they do look very much like a team destined for the championship, you'd have to say. You know, they did show a little bit more energy in terms of getting into the final third against Crystal Palace, but they didn't create anywhere near enough. I suppose the one bright spot for Leicester is that Fulham do give the opposition chances. You know, they conceded 3 against West Ham, and 2 of them were incredibly sloppy. And 10 of Fulham's last 11 games, by the way, have been both teams to score. if you like your betting. So I actually think on that basis, we're probably looking at both teams to score, Fulham win. So that's what I'm going to go for. Both teams to score, Leicester City 1, Fulham 2. The Ruud van Nistelrooy rot continues. So next up, Graham Potter's West Ham facing Oliver Glasner's Crystal Palace, who have one defeat in their last 10 Premier League games. They are looking very, very good, and this one's another one that's really difficult to call. You know, you're tempted to go with the new manager bounce a little bit. You know, West Ham, I don't think they played particularly well. I think Fulham gave them some chances and put 2 on a plate for them, but they still got the win. They got it over the line, 3-2. So big win for Graham Potter at home. But I suspect this one's going to be a little bit tougher. I do think this one's going to be a little bit tougher. I really like watching Palace, and I love Jean-Philippe Mateta. He's basically a Barclays man in a few years' time, isn't he? That's what one we're going to be looking back on, and Palace fans love him, and I think he's going to be one that will cause West Ham some problems in this one. I really do. He scored 2 in 2, hasn't he, Mateta? He scored against Leicester and he scored against Chelsea, so he's in a little bit of a purple patch. I mean, it would be a brave man who'd bet against him scoring again against West Ham. Oh, I'm so tempted to go Palace away win, but I'm not. I'm going to sit on the fence. I'm going to go draw. I'm going to go for a draw because I think West Ham will give opportunities up to Palace. They were really quite porous against Fulham, and Fulham really should have scored more than they did. They should have got more from the game, to be honest. And I just suspect that Palace will take some of those chances. But equally, I think West Ham will be buoyed by that win against Fulham. They'll have a lot of confidence coming into this one. And I don't think Graham Potter will have solved the defensive issues overnight. That would be unrealistic. So I think we'll see goals. I'm going to go both teams to score. And should I go Desmond again? No, I'm going to go 1-1. I'm going to go 1-1. West Ham 1, Crystal Palace 1. Will be a good game to watch, that one. Next up, Arsenal against Aston Villa, and again, it's a really tough one to call. I didn't think Arsenal were terrific in the North London derby, certainly in the first half. I didn't think Villa were great at Everton, but they got the job done. Same with Arsenal, so I can't really call this one. It feels like we're just going to be fence sitting in a lot of games this weekend. But I'm not sure I can call a winner in this one. I mean, the record books would suggest that a draw is very unlikely. I mean, there's been no draws between these two in the last 12 years. I mean, another factor at play here is also that Unai Emery has quite a good record against Arsenal since he left them as their manager. I think he's unbeaten in 4 games out of the 6 that he's played them, so I don't think a draw is necessarily out of the question. I've got to say, I feel like a lot of the noise coming from Arsenal fans is, and they watch their team, they know, is that they really lack that clinical edge in the final third. You know, they get chances, but they just don't finish them, and it's going to tell at some point. It's going to be a big factor for them this season, I think, unless they can get a proper centre-forward in. Obviously, no Gabriel Jesus, Kai Havertz isn't quite doing the job, Saka's out injured for a big part of this season. If they can get a centre-forward in, then, you know, things might change, but for this game in particular, they're not going to have one in. And I think that's going to be decisive in the result that I'm going to predict. So I'm going to go for 1-1. You know, Arsenal have 2 defeats in the last 3 games. Villa have 3 wins on the spin. They're unbeaten in 4. I just think it points to a draw. That's what I'm going for. So I'm going to go 1-1. So next up, Everton against Tottenham Hotspur at Goodison Park. Another game that neither side can really afford to lose. You know, Everton are a point outside the relegation zone, and the struggles in front of goal continued in midweek against Aston Villa. They just looked bereft of confidence, bereft of ideas. You know, Spurs are 14th and miles off where they and everyone else would have expected them to be at this stage of the season. And I think whether they like to or not, or whether they intend to or not, their focus might just subconsciously start to shift to the cup competitions, you know, because they're in the semi-final of the League Cup. That fan base is desperate for a trophy. They're in the semi-final of the League Cup and ahead in that one, of course, against Liverpool. And, you know, they're in the latter stages of Europe as well. So Everton is going to be a tough place for Spurs to go and get a win. But equally, I can't see Everton getting it over the line either. So I'm going to have to fence it again. And I can't see past a draw. I think Spurs will give Everton chances. They really will give Everton chances, but I just don't think Everton are clinical enough to take them. Equally, I think Everton are quite resilient at the back and will limit Spurs to very little, but Spurs have some good attacking players. Kulusevski, Son, they'll break Everton down eventually. So my gut says 1-1 on this one. It wouldn't surprise me if Spurs pinched it. I can't see Everton winning this one. But I'm going to go for a draw. I think it's going to be 1-1. I think Spurs might just start looking towards those cup competitions. I think they restart, don't they? They've got Hoffenheim next week. So they'll just start thinking towards those cup competitions and what can they get out of this season, because the league looks like it's done and dusted really in terms of what they can possibly achieve. They're not going to fly up the league and start challenging for the top 6 now. They're too far behind. They're not going to be in any danger of relegation. So, they might just start shifting towards that thinking of actually maybe we need to start prioritising the midweek cup competitions again. And, if they come out of this season with a piece of silverware, I'm sure Ange Postecoglou will be lauded as a hero. I mean, who knows? They might yet win more than Arsenal this season. But yeah, I'm going to go for 1-1. Probably not one for the purists, I would say. Next up, another one of Sunday's 2 p.m. kickoffs. It's Manchester United against Brighton at Old Trafford. Whew, what do we make of this one? This is tough to call as well, isn't it? That Man United performance against Southampton's really thrown me, Just because, I expected that it would be tough and they'd labour and they'd get there in the end, but I didn't think they'd be 1-0 down after 82 minutes. I thought they were really poor. They were actually quite lucky to only be 1-0 down. So, I'm finding this one quite difficult, because I think Ruben Amorim is a fantastic coach, and I think in time he will get it right at Man United. If he's given time, if he's given the resources by the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, he will get it right. He's a very good and astute coach. But I think we've all, including Manchester United fans, gradually just come to the realisation that he's working with quite a limited group of players. Not just overpaid and inflated transfer fees and all the, the egos that come with that and how difficult that is to manage. I do think mentality is obviously a big issue at Manchester United. Amorim hauls off Mainu at half-time and Højlund and Agate just before the hour mark, and that was quite telling, because I don't think that was strategic. I don't think that was tactical. I think that was about, pull your finger out. You're really not doing enough. You are not playing in the way that this club expects. And I think that's a big reason why Ahmad really shines in this team. And not because he's not talented, because he's very talented as well, exceptionally talented. But mentality, attitude, he's just a level ahead. He's just a level ahead of a lot of the players around him, and you can see that. It's there in spades. This Manchester United side are probably, 9 to 12 points off where they expected to be at this stage of the season. They're going to get to anywhere approaching the European places this season. Brighton at home is one where they have to look at it and say that's a winnable fixture. I think they'd be disappointed with less than a win here, especially the way Brighton have performed this season. I don't think Brighton have pulled up any trees. They've been underperforming themselves. Obviously, they got a win at Portman Road last game week. I think if you're United fans, you've got to look at this one as a winnable one. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if either team won this one. However, individually, man for man, I think Brighton probably on a par with United, maybe even slightly better group of players. But I think as a team, collectively, they're a little bit more together. They're a little bit more cohesive in that final third as well. A little bit more organised at the back. And I just suspect over the course of a season, Brighton will finish ahead of United. So I'm gonna back Brighton to get a good point on the road. I think we'll see goals. I absolutely hate fence sitting. I was so close to calling this one Brighton 2-1. But I think I'm going to go for Desmond. I think I'm going to go 2-2. Manchester United 2. Brighton and Hove Albion 2. And I think Brighton take the lead. Similar to what we saw against Southampton. Man United not playing well for large parts, but ultimately the Old Trafford factor, the fans, the crowd, maybe Ahmad again, a factor in getting them back over the line. So I'm going to go Manchester United 2, Brighton 2. So next up, high-flying Nottingham Forest against Southampton. And this is another one where the last game week's just thrown me a little bit. That game against United at Old Trafford, I thought Southampton were terrific. For large parts of the game, they caused United no end of trouble. Sulemana absolutely terrorised Yoro and the rest of the United defence. I thought defensively they were really sound. I thought Dibbling was really good. And I just think Southampton, if they start to play a little bit like that between now and the end of the season, they might just give themselves an outside chance. They're still a long way from safety, but they might just make a good fist of it if they start playing like that. So it's just thrown me a little bit, that last performance from Southampton, because otherwise I would have predicted this one to be maybe 3 or 4-0 to Forest. Instead, I think it's going to be still a home win, sadly, for Southampton. I still think it's going to be a home win, but it's maybe going to be a little bit less comfortable. I think Forest were very good against Liverpool, especially defensively, and they were the usual clinical self. You know, they had maybe one half chance, and Chris Wood just buried it. Chris Wood just absolutely buried it past Alisson. It was a terrific finish. You know, I think Southampton are going to have to work very, very hard to limit the scoreline on this one. I mean, arguably the most impressive part of Southampton's performance in midweek at Old Trafford was the defensive shape and how hard they worked as a unit to keep Man United out for, 82 minutes. And yes, they conceded 3 in the last 10 minutes. But for 82 minutes, I thought they worked very, very well. And it was something we haven't really seen a lot of or enough of under Southampton. So, encouragement for Ivan Djuric and perhaps something for them to build on going into this game against Nottingham Forest. But I still think Forest get the job done. I don't think it'll be comfortable per se, but comfortable enough. So, I'm going to go Nottingham Forest 2, Southampton 0. Next up, the champions, Manchester City, travel to Ipswich Town. Again, another potential banana skin for City, this one. I think the last few games will have given real encouragement to Kieran McKenna and Ipswich. Obviously, they get the big win at home to Chelsea. Then they go to Fulham, and they really should win that one as well. It was really frustrating to watch that one because I thought they were terrific. And they throw it away at the end. But they draw it, of course. And then last game week, they lose at home to Brighton, again, due to silly errors at the back. Christian Walton maybe will look at that one and say could have done a bit better, but it feels like they're making key defensive errors in big critical moments of the game, and it's cost them. And you could reasonably argue that's been the story of Ipswich's season, and you'd probably be right. But I do think the last few performances have been slightly different for Ipswich. They just turned, maybe not turned a corner, but they've looked a little bit better. There's signs of life in there. From, a few months ago, we all thought they were pretty much destined for the championship, and actually now, okay, there's maybe seeds. There's maybe seeds there that we could a platform to work from. Sadly for Ipswich, I think Manchester City might just be a bridge too far. I watched Manchester City's performance away to Brentford, and they went 2-0 up. Could have been more. And then they just left the door open, and Brentford were really clinical in key moments. So I don't think Ipswich will be that clinical, and I think they'll give Manchester City maybe more chances than Ipswich will. I think this one might be I would hope it's not a soul-destroying defeat, but I do think this will be a big win for Manchester City. There's been big news out of City this week that Haaland signed, a 10-year contract, effectively guaranteeing him to be at City into his 30s. There's been a flurry of signings into Man City. The Uzbek defender Kusanov, they've got Vitor Reis coming in from Palmeiras. Omar Marmoush is a terrific signing from Frankfurt. I'm really jealous that we'll see him in Manchester City's colours very, very soon. And I've got to say, I think this is where we start to see the Manchester City machine just click back into gear. I thought that against Brentford, and I know I said this in the Brentford preview, and they threw it away at the end, but they should have got that one done. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we're going to see the Manchester City of seasons gone by, but they're still a very, very good side. A very good side. A side that I still firmly expect will finish in the Champions League places this season. They've got enough in their locker, and I'm still a little bit worried about them for the title, I've got to be honest. I think if there's a team that can go on a 17-game winning run, Manchester City's probably that team. I don't expect them to, but I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Yeah, I just think City are going to click into gear at some point, and I expect this is a game where we'll see Ipswich dispatched fairly comfortably. I'm going to have to go 5-0. I think it's going to be a real morale-boosting victory for City. I think Haaland probably scores a couple, maybe Foden again. We saw him get a couple against Brentford. And Savinho looks like a slightly, a much better player going forward now as well. He's just stepped it up a level. So I do. I think this is one where we see City, maybe just hints of the old City and a sign of the new City to come when they get their new signings in. I've no idea if Omar Marmoush can make this one. I doubt it with international clearance, but I think certainly there's going to be enough in the City team to put Ipswich away. So I think this will be one where Ipswich, wipe their noses and just get on with it next week. They're not all going to be like this. But City are still a top team, and yeah, I think it'll be a bit of a mauling. Next up, it's Monday Night Football. It's Chelsea against Wolves at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea without a win in 5 games now. Now, this one has got goals written all over it. The last game between these two was at Molineux, and it finished Chelsea 6, Wolves 2. Now, it might not be that emphatic, but I think we'll see a high-scoring game for sure. The last couple of games I've watched Wolves, they've lost both of those games 3-0 against Nottingham Forest and against Newcastle. Now, no shame in losing to those teams because they're both very, very good teams. However, in both of those games, Wolves had chances galore. They hit the post and the crossbar a couple of times in each one. And in any other game, if Wolves were just a little bit more clinical, they'd have got something from those games. And I just can't see that run of bad luck, let's call it, because I do think it is an element of bad luck. I can't see that run of luck continuing here. I think they score against Chelsea. I can't see Chelsea, especially with the way Chelsea's defence is playing, I can't see Chelsea's defence keeping Wolves out. Equally, there's no way I can see Wolves' defence keeping Chelsea and Cole Palmer out the way they're playing. So it's 1,000,000% going to be both teams to score, but I'm torn over whether or not Wolves can get a point in this one. Don't think they do. I don't think they do. I've got a lot of respect for Vitor Pereira and the way that he's got this Wolves side playing. And there's a lot to like about them. There's a lot to like about the way they go forward. I just think they're missing that little bit of luck in the final third. I don't think they're going to get enough to get a point against Chelsea. I think they could pinch 1. They may even pinch 2. But I think Chelsea can go and get 3, maybe even 4. So I think that run of bad results for Chelsea ends here. I'll be honest. I think this is a game that they've got to win. And I suspect that they might just get it done in the end. I think Wolves will put up a fight, they'll cause them problems, but I suspect that Chelsea will get it done in the end. So I'm going to go for a high scoring one. I'm going to go 3-1. I'm going to go Chelsea 3, Wolves 1. And that's it for our Game Week 22 predictions. Again, thank you for watching. If you like watching this stuff, if you're into football, if you're a football dad like me, if you're a football nerd like me, give us a like, give us a follow, give us a subscribe, all the good stuff. You can find me over on TikTok and Twitter as well. And yeah, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.